think it's probably best to just jump into some short intros from the Steakhut team to give us a little background on what each of you do for the protocol and kind of the origin story. And then we'll have Eric and Nadim kind of jump into more of the specific questions on how things work and what's being built so far. But yeah, would love to kick things off. Ribeye, why don't you lead things off with a short intro?
Yeah, sounds awesome. So thanks for hosting us today, guys. So my name's Ribeye. I'm one of the co-founders of Steakhut, along with Wagyu here. So from my perspective, well, obviously as a DeFi startup, we all wear a few hats. So I spend a lot of my time on marketing, business development, and sort of the community aspects of things. So I feel like for the most part, I spend all my days just scrolling Twitter, jumping on Discord and sort of creating a ton of cool videos and graphics and stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, it's good. I mean, some of the stuff that's been put out so far is really cool. And as the person who runs social, I appreciate the unique perspective and angle on this stuff. So excited to see what you guys put out going forward. But yeah, Wagyu, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role here too?
Yeah, Ribeye a little bit short, but yeah, he does a lot more than that behind the scenes as well. But yeah, I'm the lead dev and the other co-founder. So it pretty much like how we split most things. It's like anything that's got code in it, I'll lead up, and then anything else that's pretty much is Ribeye. So. And like we've found ourselves just delving into so many different things as well that we never would have ever thought that we'd be delving into. But like here we are, and it's been and excited for the future as well. So
Amazing, amazing. Yes, I'm sure you're both selling yourself short on what you've contributed to build Steakhut, and so I would imagine as we get into the Q&A here, we'll uncover and unpack a little bit more of the amazing skills that you have to bring this to life. So I'm going to kick it over to Eric and Nadim, who can give a little short intro, and then why don't you guys lead into our discussion today?
Yeah, for sure. So I can get things started. So I'm Eric. I'm part of our business development team along with Nadim. We specifically sit within our DeFi vertical, but we help out a lot of other projects outside of DeFi as well as other partners like funds, different types of like data companies, etc. I've been here about 3 years at Avalanche, a little over 3 years. Joined a week before mainnet launched. So I got to see like have a front row seat at seeing the ecosystem come to be where it is today. We've known the Steakhut team here quite a while actually now. So I'm super excited for the spaces. I know we're gonna have a bigger announcement for the V2 launch that just happened last week. So I don't want to front run that too much, but hopefully we can dive into the protocol a little bit today and to this team's background story, and excited to get things going.
Yeah, I think that maybe kind of cover both of us, but hey, I'm Nazim, also part of the same BD team as Eric, mostly focused on DeFi, part-time stake enjoyer, just also a Vault user on Avalanche for maybe the past 3 years, trying everything here. But yeah, I think can maybe get started with like, first question for the Steakhut team, but then I think to start with like really the start, like what is Steakhut? I think most people here don't necessarily know that. So if you can do the kind of explain me like I'm five for Steakhut, what is it? What do you do? What are the different features? That would be great.
It's known as an active liquidity management. As their liquidity on top of so right now Steakhut has just deployed flagship.
I think
I
you're
guess
breaking
kind of
up a little. Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, I wasn't sure if it was just mine. Hey Ribeye, I think you're breaking up a bunch on your audio. If you wanted to jump off and come back in, I can let you back in up as a speaker. But yeah, I wasn't sure if it was happening on everybody else's end too. Maybe Wagyu, if you want to jump in on that a little bit while we iron out the tech.
It's not a Spaces without
Yeah,
some
I'll jump
Shopee
in.
or Joe.
I was just messing. I thought he was getting rugged. I was messaging him. Said, "River, I'm pretty sure you're getting rugged here." So he'll fix that up. But yeah, Stakeout. I mean, as you guys said, I mean, we've been around for quite some time in the Avalanche scene now. We've gone through, like, initially, sort of where we started was sort of not where we've ended up, but like just like the really fast moving pace of DeFi, and like it was a little bit of time till we sort of got our foothold, and we like, hey, like we launched this product, our MVP, on top of Trader Joe V2 liquidity book, which like at the time was like a really novel innovation. And then shortly after that, we're like, hey, like we can actually bring this to like mass scale. And we really started work. Like it was not so long after the MVP, we're like, hey, we can make this really big. You know, people don't actually have a good understanding of how to manage their liquidity on top of these concentrated liquidity protocols. So, like a lot of people would see like high APRs and they'd be like, yeah, cool, this is like really good for my wallet. And then like over time, they'd just be like, oh, no, APR doesn't really mean that much. So like myself and Ribeye, we went away, we did like so much research into what makes a good automated liquidity manager. And pretty much what we've come up with is what we've launched with Steakhut V2 the other week. So we're very confident in its abilities, super flexible in what it can do. There's so much flexibility. But then we're also, like, Steakhut's got its own managed strategies, but then we've also got community-based strategies, which we're super excited for as well and see lots of potential in. So, like, in a world where you start to see, like, we got pitched the other week by like a firm that wanted to do, like stuff for our token, and we're like, hey, we like offer all this already, and it's just that it's like they were at a Web 2 background, we got a Web 3 background. We're like, hey, this is like a massive, like this is gonna be a massive opportunity if we can bring all this to the Web 3 scape and Stakehup be managing it. So yeah, super excited for what we can do in the future as well.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like a paradigm shift with the concentrated liquidity AMMs. I think it was like a year and a half ago. Uniswap first, and then liquidity book launch, and now I think there's like various variations, right? I think Algebra Finance has their own. So I think the landscape has definitely changed quite a bit. You mentioned that managing your own liquidity, right, on these new AMMs aren't necessarily the easiest thing for people. It's quite a shift from kind of like the Uni V2 model. Could you maybe like you guys like think about this a lot, I'm sure. Could you maybe like dive into like what makes it so tricky for just like the average retail user, but also like maybe for funds out there, right? Because we do get a lot of questions from time to time from liquid token funds and whatnot about their DeFi positions. So love to hear your insights on that.
Yeah. So in concentrated liquidity, it's as you mentioned, it's very different to like Uniswap V2, where you'd be supplying liquidity over a full range from like price zero to price infinity ultimately. So with the birth of Uniswap V3, they introduced concentrated liquidity, which pretty much means that you, instead of providing liquidity to a much wider bound, you can now go in and provide liquidity to a much tighter range. So like, for instance, there's if you can put your tokens to work at a much tighter range, you can facilitate much more swaps at that price range. So, for instance, if you're seeing like pair move in correlation to each other, it probably makes sense to go slightly more tight. So you'll see that on a lot of our like stable strategy tight. You've got like our LSDFi protocols like Benki, GoGo Pool, and Yieldjack AVAX. Also quite tight, just because they're like highly correlated with the other token, which is AVAX there. And then you'll see like on some of our other pairs, like the more volatile pairs, say something against USDC, you'll see the range really opens up, because what you don't want to do is concentrate too tight. Like, yeah, you'll facilitate a lot of volume, but you don't want to concentrate too tight, because what happens as price moves up or down of one of the tokens, you'll have like pretty much, say if price moves up of one token, you'll pretty much end up with all of a bag of another token. So, and then once that happens, you stop earning fees, and then you're faced with the decision, hey, do I need to, like, how do I get back to my like ratio? Or you might even be happy with that, to be honest. Like, a lot of people might want to do that as part of their strategy, but there's just a lot more at play now. Like, you can't just like with stake again, but like without Steakhut, you're sitting there. Like, we're talking to a protocol the other day. They've got a fair bit of protocol owned liquidity, and they're like, yeah, we pretty much go on to the protocol each day and like move our liquidity around, and it's taking us like nearly an hour a day. And they're just like, they said it was fun to begin with, but they're like, we just want to focus on protocol stuff, not managing our own liquidity. So like, that's where Steakhut really comes in, and will manage the liquidity on behalf of people if they need.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I guess like, given all that, right? Like, how does Steakhut actually? What are the mechanics behind the protocol? Especially like, what you alluded to, right? Like in periods of high volatility, if the price moves from where your liquidity is, right? Within the AMMs, like that, results in some, I guess we can call it slippage in this case, right? I guess how does Steakhut mitigate against that?
Yeah. Ribeye, are you unrugged yet? We'll just do a quick test.
Yeah, hey guys, I think I should be back.
Yeah, that's way better. I'll start this question. I'll take this question. But yeah, so the way Steakhut works behind the scenes is like, we've got our core contracts, and like they're super flexible in what they can do and how you can manage your liquidity. And I know a lot of the community managers are starting to really see the power in what you can do with Steakhut. But essentially, we can put, I think we've got about 20 Uniswap V3 positions that we can manage in a single vault. So for community managers, that's pretty powerful. Steakhut, we don't need 20 positions. We try and really keep the strategies behind the scenes, like, they're not simple, but like, we need to make them straightforward, because there's we don't want to have 20 positions. It just gets really hard to manage. But behind the scenes, like, we've done a heap of research for the last nearly 290 days on what makes a good automated liquidity manager. And in that, we've turned that into pretty much Ribeye doing a lot of research, myself doing a lot of research, and then we've pretty much got that research turned into code. And then behind the scenes, we've got automated liquidity management strategies running that are managing all your liquidity for you, making sure the prices, that the bands are set optimally, and ensuring that we're keeping, like, unless there's a specific partner that wants specific needs, we're pretty much trying to keep around the 50-50 ratio to ensure that one, swaps can be facilitated in a really efficient manner, but then you're also not missing out on making really good APRs with the strategies as well. And what you'll see, like, it's a bit of a flywheel effect with Steakhut, where it's like we need like liquidity to generate the swap, so we can get swaps routed through Steakhut. And one of the reasons to help that, we've also built we've harnessed YieldYak's Yak Swap, like really good product, embedded that directly in the UI that it's going to route swaps the most optimal way. And what you'll start to see is as more liquidity gets added, Steakhut's going to be like the preferred liquidity source for a lot of the swaps. And then as the swaps increase, we'll see fee APRs go up on the swaps, and you'll start to see like Steakhut being the preferred source of liquidity for swaps more and more regularly, which like will just keep reinforcing that flywheel effect. So like we can see like liquidity and volumes going up, like hopefully a lot from here, and really just getting that flywheel effect started. So yeah, excited for what we can do with the strategies.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks. So I guess like as a regular user, now that I know that like behind the scenes, Steakhut does a lot of nice kind of wonderful things to optimize my liquidity, so it's always in the right range in a gas efficient way, while also kind of taking into consideration the behavior of those underlying assets. Like obviously there's a huge range of different vol strategies. You have those community deployed strategies, you have your own strategies. Can you maybe walk us through, like, as a regular user, how do I kind of look at all those parameters? What should I be aware of when I look at a specific strategies? Because you see a lot of things in the UI, analytics, boost, management fees, harvest. Like, can you maybe help us navigate this? Like, what should I be looking at really when I'm looking at a specific liquidity pool strategy?
Yeah, cool. I might just quickly start on that one. So to begin with, Steakhut sort of uniquely creates every single strategy to the token pair. So Wagyu sort of briefly mentioned on this earlier. So basically what we do is we have a look at the specific token pair that we're creating a pool for. And depending on the relationship of those two tokens will depend on the sort of strategy, the underlying strategy that we end up creating. So for example, something like USDC, USDT, we can see that Steakhut, and this is all, we've built transparency into the D app as well. So through Steakhut, you can have a look at all our ranges and everything that's going on behind the scenes. So for the average user, they can jump on and see that for the USDC, USDT type pairs, we're sort of concentrating liquidity very tightly and sort of optimizing to get those swap fees. And then for more volatile pairs, as Wagyu sort of mentioned earlier as well, we then sort of run wider range strategies to account for those wider, sort of more wild price movements. So when you jump on a Steakhut, we've put a lot of sort of time and focus into building out our analytics suite and to building in transparency. So that's something that anyone will be able to jump on, have a look into our ranges and see exactly how each strategy is being managed behind the scenes. What ranges we have set, how much liquidity is being deployed or how much is being held at spot and what exactly is going on there. And then we've tried to make it sort of as simple as possible. So anyone will be able to jump onto the D app, deposit their token pairs, and then Steakhut then automates the rest, optimizing their liquidity and earning swap fees. And so the main thing that we're having a look at, there's a couple of different factors, but one of the main things is what's called fee APR. And so this is a term that's quite unique to concentrated liquidity. And what fee APR is it takes into account the amount of swap fees being generated by the protocol and then proportional to the TVL within the strategy. And so this is how fee APR is calculated. And basically what this tells us is sort of what sort of APRs we can expect to start generating through a strategy, and how well sort of liquidity is being utilized. But with concentrated liquidity, as we sort of mentioned earlier, there's a lot more that comes into play here. It's sort of there's a lot of complexities behind the scenes in terms of making sure that we're positioning our liquidity well and optimizing our yields. So what we've also built in is our performance suite, which allows us to track not only our fee APRs, but also the underlying actual performance of all our strategies. So users can make sure that in the end, not only are they earning these good fee APRs, liquidity is being used effectively, but net of impermanent loss, net of fees, that they're actually getting a solid performance at the end of the day. When we first were sort of researching concentrated liquidity and Steakhut, one thing that we realized is that basically the analytics for concentrated liquidity, it sucks. And this was a big thing that we want to improve upon. So I know that Wagyu built about 10 different analytics suites before we finally settled on what we've got now. But really our whole goal was trying to bring as much sort of research and transparency to users as possible to make sure that everything's performing well for them. Wagyu, anything to sort of build on there?
No, I think you got all of it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you here, by the way, for kind of analytics for concentrated liquidity. I think the hardest thing about the whole experience of like depositing liquidity directly into those concentrated liquidity AMMs is not even like the UX of it, it's just figuring out if you're making money or not. And so it's pretty nice to be able to go into those pools and like kind of see how the pool has performed in the past, and kind of be able to expect something in the future. I guess you went into fee APR specifically, but then I also see some strategies kind of marked as boosted, like the kind of LST strategies as well as the farmers rush strategies. Can you maybe walk us through kind of the mechanism there and how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as you mentioned, we've got a whole bunch of awesome boosters strategies on our D app as well. And so basically, the way that this works, anyone that's familiar with the good old DeFi summer of 2021 and 2022 probably participated in yield farming back in the day. So if you remember yield farming, we've sort of built on this and built the next generation of yield farming and built it on top of concentrated liquidity. And so for the basics of this, the way that this works is users can come along, stake their tokens into a pool, and then they can farm their LP tokens to start earning bonus rewards. In the case of Steakhut, this is paid out in terms of stake and as well as our partners' tokens as well. And this is a really good way for protocols to help boost their liquidity in a more efficient way by doing this on top of concentrated liquidity. And then, of course, for retail users and liquidity providers, it's a fun way to jump on and earn a few bonus extra tokens as well. So, as you mentioned, we've got a whole bunch of partners on our D app across the LSD pairs and a couple of others. And we've really been trying to partner with everyone's favorite protocols on Avalanche to build their pools on Steakhut. So far we've partnered with BenKey, YieldYak, Avalanche, and now we've got GoGo Pool coming up as well. And with these guys, what we're doing is we are helping manage their protocol own liquidity on top of Steakhut, helping make that very easy for them so they can worry about more important things like building cool stuff rather than worrying about their liquidity. And then we also bring double reward farms to their users. So for the protocol, this is a really awesome way for them to help bootstrap their liquidity by incentivizing users to come on and provide liquidity to their tokens. And then for the protocols, it's also a really capital efficient way to do so. So back in the early days of liquidity farming, liquidity farming was built on top of, the V1 or /V2 type of protocols without concentrated liquidity, which was, you're not getting the most capital efficiency on your liquidity. as well as sort of we had the bribe ecosystem sort of come into play as well, where protocols could sort of like bribe liquidity providers to provide liquidity, which ends up sort of costing these protocols a fair bit in order to, incentivize this mercenary type capital. Whereas what we've done is we've taken the fun of liquidity farming and then we've brought it over to concentrated liquidity, which provides a much more capital efficient way for these protocols to help incentivize their token pairs. And yeah, really fun way for the community to sort of get around and earn a few bonus tokens as well.
Yeah, and that's like kind of alluding to the Steakhut Rush program you guys have going on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as part of that promo, we've got what's called our Farmers Rush. And so what we're doing as we first kick off the protocol is we're boosting rewards across everyone's sort of favorite token pairs. So we mentioned those our partner protocols. We're helping bootstrap their liquidity with some stake rewards, as well as everyone's favorite sort of blue chip tokens as well. AVAX USDC, Bitcoin, WETH, sort of boosting yields across the board for everyone as part of our Farmers Rush promo. And the way that we run this as well is as more and more liquidity comes into the protocol, we're boosting rewards further and further. So yeah, really awesome way to sort of help kickstart the protocol and start things off with a bang.
Yeah, and which partners are involved right now, and what if you guys have any kind of plans to share with that for the group here?
Yeah, we've got quite a few partners already actually. So really, our whole goal is to try and partner with every great protocol across Avalanche. So in our first week of launch, we've already partnered with our first double reward farm was Yield Yak, which is for the YY AVAX pair. And then users can farm that strategy to earn Yak and stake rewards. And then we've also partnered with Bankkey to boost the AVAX strategy, giving away key and stake rewards. And then Avalanche recently launched at the end of last week as well. And so we've got some XAVA stake rewards there as well. And then we've also got a few more partners in the pipeline. This morning, just recently, we announced with GoGo Pool that we're going to be doing some cool stuff with them. So I think later in the week, we'll be bringing out a farm for these guys as well, and a bit more information on that shortly. And then, yeah, in the talks with a bunch more Avalanche protocols to help bring some boosted liquidity to their protocol and bring some great rewards for the community as well. So yeah, tons of stuff in the pipeline there.
Awesome. Yeah, love the focus on the concentrated liquid. I mean the LSDs. I think there's a lot to do there, and I already see I think it's well over 1 million, right? It's like 1.2 million in deposits in a week. So I think those rewards are definitely kicking in.
Yeah, and on that topic, one partner that you guys didn't really mention is like the underlying AMMs indexes. Obviously you've all started on Trader Joe initially for the V1. Now you're kind of pivoting more towards Uniswap, or at least just for the launch of the V2. I'm just curious, how do you pick an underlying AMM? Can you announce anything in terms of upcoming integrations of AMMs? And even more broadly, do you think you were ever build strategies on top of stuff that is in your typical concentrated liquidity AMM? Do you think there are other protocols that you could kind of, be integrating and be a liquidity layer on top of that as well?
Yeah. Awesome question. So right now, Steakhut liquidity is built on top of concentrated liquidity dexes. So that's where our main focus is at the moment. So you mentioned we kickstarted things off on Trader Joe's liquidity book. And now with Steakhut Liquidity V2, we've debuted that on top of Uniswap V3, which was sort of the pioneer of the whole concentrated liquidity concept. And so with Steakhut, we've built it to try and be as compatible as possible with as many different type of DEX models as possible. So for the most part, for anyone that's familiar with, of course, the Uniswap V3 AMM as well as the Algebra AMM, which is two different, similar concentrated liquidity models. So Steakhut's completely compatible with all these types of dexes, and we can very easily sort of roll out and support them very rapidly. So we can scale. We call ourselves the liquidity layer of Web3 because what we want to do is scale out to support, bring as many dexes, as many blockchains, as many subnets onto Steakhut as we can, and really optimize liquidity across the entirety of Web3. So yeah, getting things kickstarted with Uniswap V3 initially, and then on Avalanche at the moment. Well, as of basically the last year, Avalanche has seen some really awesome growth in terms of DEX models. I think, like the whole DEX space is moving towards more capital efficient ways of providing liquidity and facilitating swaps, and I think Avalanche has really been a standout blockchain in terms of technology that does this. So of course, starting with the liquidity book, Uniswap V3. We've got Faro is another DEX on top of Avalanche that's based on the Uni V3 / algebra type model. So that's another DEX that will be able to support quite rapidly as well. And then outside of concentrated liquidity on Avalanche, there's some really cool stuff going on as well. Namely Dexalot comes to mind, who's building decentralized order book designs. For Steakhut, I think any DEX that provides a really efficient way of providing liquidity is something that gets us excited. That's where we see the space moving is towards these more efficient ways of providing liquidity and facilitating swaps. That's really where the space is moving. So I think in the long run, our goal will be to sort of branch out further and facilitate these management platforms on top of all efficient DEX models. That's sort of on our roadmap for the longer term future. And then right now we're sort of focusing on building out and scaling across, those what we mentioned as the Uni V3 / algebra type concentrated liquidity DEXs, and then going from there. Wagyu, anything to sort of add there that I missed?
No, but yeah, we should have another DEX partner on pretty soon. So like what we've built the platform to be is super simple to manage liquidity across any DEX. So like right now there's only Uni V3, but within the next short while you'll start to see more of those DEXs pop up, and what you'll see is, hey, like our real vision for this is like what we're starting to see is individual DEXs. You're starting to see DEX aggregators pop up on top, and a higher and higher usage on like at the DEX aggregator level, and people are like, at the end of the day, like when you swap a token, like you really just want the best swap rate for that token. I mean, there's a few things that also play in that. It's like, UI, UX design, people also have an affinity to branding and stuff too. But like at the end of the day, like really what you want when you swap a token is the best rate. So like our sort of ethos on this is you're going to start to see like DEX aggregators just take like more and more of the everyday market share, which is obviously supported by underlying DEXs. But I think you'll just see DEX aggregator and that'll pull liquidity to whatever DEXs that it needs to route through. But like once that sort of starts to happen, there's not really like one good platform where you can go to manage your liquidity. So like we sort of see Steakhut as like the liquidity, like an aggregator, like a DEX aggregator. Like Steakhut is the liquidity aggregator. So we really want to offer that one single place where liquidity managers have a familiar UI and it's super efficient to manage any of your liquidity. So that's kind of our ethos on that, is as you start to see more and more aggregators take more market share, people are going to go, hey, we just want one place to manage our liquidity, and we want the most efficient way possible. So that's the sort of ethos that we're playing there.
Yeah, this makes a ton of sense. And like the way you describe it, I can almost imagine Steakhut as like also routing through different pools as opposed to like having the user pick between the pools. Is this something that you guys have thought about where like I think your average user, they care less about the underlying DEX and definitely care more about just the assets they're depositing. And so they shouldn't have to pick, okay, Avax USDC on Uniswap or Trader Joe or any other DEX. They should just say, okay, give me the best one for now. And like, is it something that you guys are working on? Do you think it makes sense to build this kind of features?
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And it's possible on top of like current infrastructure. Like I was thinking about this the other day. Like I think about this a lot. But you, because of the underlying infrastructure we've built, like there's potentially in the future, it's like, well, we've got we've got these, say, univolts, and say we might have these, for instance, another DEX on Avalanche is, say, Ferro at the moment, right? So you might have a univolt and a ferrovolt, and you'll start to see, well, hey, maybe there's actually an optimal allocation between these vaults, and you could kind of nearly roll up the vaults into like a master vault, for instance, and it's like, hey, instead of having 10 different DEXs, say AVAX USDC vaults on the platform, it's like we could kind of roll that up, as you're saying, one level and go, well, there's one AVAX USDC vault, and then that trickles down to the optimal liquidity allocation that you need, and it could automatically go between the DEXs. So like that's actually, I was actually thinking of that the other day, and it is possible, and it actually makes sense at a point in time as well. But it's it just it at the minute it would add a unnecessary layer of complexity. But I think we'll get to a point where that's definitely like it really makes sense to do something like that.
I think to build on that further, not only sort of managing your liquidity, for one strategy between DEXs, but also taking that further and sort of managing liquidity between whether it be blockchains or subnets as well. I think, this is something that's on our roadmap and something that we realized very early on when doing our sort of research and development into Steakhut as something that would be insanely awesome. Like, as you mentioned, sort of imagine, for the sort of retail user that's providing AVAX USDC liquidity, they might not necessarily care which DEX it's being provided to. They just want to make sure that they're earning, the best sort of yield that they can, or for a protocol that's providing liquidity, they might not care which DEX it's on. They just want to make sure that they're getting the optimal sort of liquidity depth out of their tokens that they can. So, in the future, this is something that we really want to explore, is that opportunity where, these retail users or these protocols can come along, deposit their tokens onto Steakhut, and then Steakhut's able to, efficiently sort of move their liquidity to whichever DEX provides the most efficient source of liquidity. And then even further, once we go expand our liquidity layer of Web3 even further, whether it's optimizing liquidity across blockchains or subnets as well. For example, we got Bitcoin B liquidity on Avalanche, as well as, Bitcoin B sort of expanded out to Arbitrum as well, and potentially expanding into the future. But imagine coming along to Steakhut and being able to provide, Bitcoin B liquidity, and then Steakhut's able to route that across DEXs, across blockchains, across subnets. That's some pretty powerful infrastructure that'll go a long way in helping reduce fragmentation across DEXs, blockchains, and subnets as well. So that's an avenue that we're very excited for, and something that's on our roadmap to experiment with.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think you guys are really well positioned as almost being like a unified liquidity layer on Avalanche for sure, but also across different chains, right? A lot of these chains have, to your point, a lot of the same assets, even maybe same liquidity pools and the same protocols, right? I know Uni's done a bunch of different chains. Trader Joe has expanded to Arbitrum, Ethereum, and I think recently Mantle. So I think there's a lot of opportunity out there. We're coming up on time a little bit. I want to maybe shift gears a little bit to the token itself, the stake token, and kind of like the X stake reward staking you guys have going on. I know that you guys are also building some additional use cases and applications on top of that. Could you maybe dive into that the platform token, kind of value accrual, the thinking behind value accrual for that token, and just anything else you guys have potentially coming up?
Yeah, cool. Wagyu, do you want to get started, or do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, I'll give an intro. So we've obviously got our stake token. So stake token was launched. We're probably nearly 2 years old on stake token now, if not a little bit longer. But yeah, we launched a little while ago now, quite early on with stake token through the old Trader Joe launchpad, which was a really cool experience for us. And then that pretty much just bootstrap protocol owned liquidity straight on Trader Joe. And then as we used to have a pretty simple staking mechanism, which was just stake your stake and get a share. I think we were staking our stake, and because most revenues were paid in Joe back in the day, you're actually getting Joe token with your stake. So we eventually added more revenue sources to the protocol. So we rolled out our auto compounding vaults, and then we had Steakhut Liquidity V1 roll out. That kind of really prompted. We were then earning revenues in multiple tokens on behalf of the protocol. So it really prompted a bit of a rethink on how best to pass on that to the stake token holders, which we really looked. We did a lot of research, and there's a couple of cool models that we could have gone with, but we ended up going with one which we've called X Stake. Similar to a few other protocols follow this, but essentially you lock up your stake token to X Stake, and then there's a minimum redeem and a maximum period. So I think the maximum, which was voted through governments, is 45 days for your redemption arc. And then once you've converted to X Stake, it unlocks a lot more utility for the stake token. So right now, we've got on there, the rewards module. So pretty much what we do is reflect any of the protocol revenues gets reflected into the rewards module. At the moment, you can stake in there and you'll earn stake, but then there's also USDC, and that's split about 50-50 at the moment. So stake your stake and get more stake and USDC at the moment, and all the protocol revenues are reflected into that rewarder contract at the moment. And then there's also other modules that we've got on there. So we've got placeholders for 2 more. Right now, what we've cooked into V2 is some additional use cases for Xstake. And that's mainly sits around, it hasn't gone live yet, but sits around the gauges for the farms. So once we get a few more partners on board, we really want to get we want a new module for Xstake, which will effectively allow gauge voting on top of the V2 farms, which should be super fun. Which is planned for the future. We've cooked that into V2. Need to just flick a switch to turn that on, but that should be really fun, and should also incentivize protocols to hold stake, really invest in the ecosystem with our protocol partners, and grow that eco out together. So I think it's what you'll see is it's really beneficial for partners and just regular users also to have that X stake, because you'll see boosted farming rewards. So that hasn't gone live yet. It is planned, and it's cooked into V2, but we're just figuring out the most optimal time to around that one.
I might quickly expand on that just a little bit. So for those that don't know what gauge voting is, another term for this will be sort of like DeFi bribing. So as we mentioned earlier, Steakhut has a whole bunch of different farms to help incentivize liquidity to different token pairs. And so what this would look like is users that hold stake and stake their stake, which is always a fun term to say, they'll be able to basically vote to which different pool gets the most rewards and to which different pool is incentivized the most. So this is something that DeFi bribing really kicked off on top of Curve with their sort of V tokenomics, where they then allowed V Curve holders to vote for which pool gets the most rewards to help boost liquidity for those pools. And this offered a step up from the traditional farming models and provided a more efficient way for protocols and users to incentivize their liquidity. So instead of having to pay, at the time, huge farming rewards to incentivize their liquidity, bribing allowed them a way to give the holders, the token holders, basically a small bribe to vote for their pool. So this is something that will be, sort of possible down the pipeline as well once this sort of gauge voting model comes into full effect. So yeah, some really awesome stuff they're going to experiment with, and really the whole idea of Steakhut is looking at ways that we can bring the most efficient source of liquidity to Web3 as possible. And so this is another step in that direction that we're excited about for later on as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And nowadays, it's actually like getting kind of hard to like incentivize certain pools like within the ecosystem. I think each AMM has their own like kind of rewards mechanism, and you just have to, like, if you're kind of doing liquidity mining across like different platforms, right? You kind of have to conform to all these like different structures, and sometimes you have to go through a governance process. So having this all like kind of unified on Steakhut just, well, at least it makes our life easier here at doing like rush rewards and whatnot. But I'm sure for individual projects too, I think it's super helpful. So yeah, I think we're nearing the end. I wanted to open up, Kyle. Do we want to open up maybe for like audience Q&A right now? I think we're in this.
Yeah, we got time for like a question or two. Obviously, we want to make sure that any question that we have come up here is directed for our friends at the Steakhut team. I know there's always a million things going on across the ecosystem that people want to talk about, but we want to honor their time. So if anybody has a question, particularly about all the great information that the Steakhut team has shared today, if you want to come up, hit the mic button, come up, and we'll bring you on up here. I personally learned a lot about things I hadn't known about the protocol yet. So I'm sure some other folks here would have some questions that want to come up, but if not, all good. Means you explained everything well. So we'll give it a second here if anybody wants to come up here. But in the meantime, while we're looking for speakers that might have a question, is there anything else you wanted to share about maybe over the next couple of weeks, like things people should look out for, something that might be coming into the front end of the protocol, or any? I know you guys mentioned a bunch of the stuff that you're working on with all these different things around the token and different partnerships on different AMMs, but anything else you wanted to share in the meantime that people should be looking out for, or like a platform they should go follow you on?
Yeah, awesome. So really quickly, sort of the main or a big focus for us for the next couple of weeks is really sort of rolling out the platform. And so what this will look like is, as we mentioned earlier, we want to sort of partner with every single great protocol across Avalanche. So already I think we've got 4 protocols lined up where we help manage their liquidity and bring farming rewards for their communities. We've got a couple more in the works as well. So that'll be a big focus for us, is helping bring deep liquidity across Avalanche. As well as that is, of course, bringing out and building out the protocol, bringing in a ton more great features, help making it as smooth, as fast as possible. I think that the app's already very fast, but it can always be faster. So it'll just be things like that, is really trying to get it where we need to be, and then start scaling it out to expand to more dexes as well.
Yeah, I love that approach. I think a lot of teams might skip the get the product working really well before you try to really focus on scaling. So yeah, love that approach. And we do have probably Steakhut's number one supporter up here, Will. Come on up, dude. What's going on, man? Good to see you again.
I'm Steakhut's strongest soldier. My question is, what kind of timeline can we expect on like additional DEX support or additional chain support?
For additional DEX support, we're pretty close with one more at the minute. So, look, we kind of alluded to it, but it's probably going to be a Faro exchange within the next little while. So, we've been working with the team there for a little while there. So, we're pretty close with that. And yeah, from there, we should have a few more dexes that we can expand to. But yeah, we're not too far away on supporting another dex, another native Avalanche project. So yeah, excited to roll that out with the team at Faro. I know we've got a few things planned.
And what kind of timeline, if you guys like have anything in mind in terms of supporting additional chains?
Yeah, cool. So within the sort of month, I would expect Steakhut to be rolled out across a couple of dexes. And so first, we're going to be building those relationships, as we said, across the Avalanche eco, bringing on a ton of great partners here, building across a couple of dexes. And then from there, we're going to be looking to expand out and build the liquidity layer across a couple of dexes, blockchains, dexes, and subnets as well, once we start to get some cool DEX models there as well. So I'd say within the month, we would expect to see us rolled out on a couple of DEXs, and then a little bit after that, potentially on top of multiple chains as well. So cool stuff in the works.
That's all from me.
Thanks, Will, man. Thanks for coming up and for supporting as always. And yeah, man, it sounds like you guys are shipping fast, and so exciting to see all the stuff that comes and how that kind of permeates across the ecosystem. So it looks like that's wrapped up on the questions that we have for today. So I think we can close things out, and definitely just want to appreciate both of you for coming on here and sharing all the great stuff. And I know we've kind of just pushed out some of these announcements, so there's a lot more to come. But Eric or Nadim, if you guys want to close anything out with any final words, and then we can wrap things up.
No, I don't. I think we covered most of it. I think we're all just thankful to have Steakhut in the ecosystem. It's gonna make a lot of people, a lot of like LPs, life's a lot easier, right? And as soon as they start supporting other AMMs, we'll start to see kind of these network effects take off. Kind of unifying liquidity across different assets, etc. So really excited for everything that's happening. And then I think we have a more formal announcement going out later this week as well. So that should, if anyone missed the spaces or need a recap, that should have a pretty good summary too.
Stake your steak is all I wanted to say.
Man, it just flows off the tongue so well. Yeah, appreciate just echoing what Eric and Nadim said. Like, it's great to see the innovation happening here, and glad to have you on. And we'll be pushing some more stuff out on social and some more information in the coming days. So yeah, keep an eye on what's going on here. And thanks to Ribeye and Wagyu for coming through. And we'll I'm sure we'll talk to you on another spaces in the future. So take care, everybody, and have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Yeah, appreciate it.